Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. By 1958, he was a name on every billboard, a face recognized on every magazine, a voice echoing in every radio across America. But life has a way of pulling even the brightest stars into unexpected chapters. On January 29, 1958, that chapter began. Elvis Presley, at the height of fame, was drafted into the United States Army. Imagine the shock that rippled across America. Fans screamed. Reporters scrambled. And Elvis? He faced it with a quiet determination, the kind of resolve that would define the next year of his life. "It's just another chapter," he confided to a close friend. "I've got to do this. No one's above it, not even me." Packing his guitar, his records, and his memories, Elvis said goodbye to the life he had known. He left behind the bright lights of Hollywood, the applause of fans, and the comfort of family in Memphis. "Mama," he whispered in a letter he would later send, "I'll be back soon, and I'll be better than ever." By March 1958, Elvis was deep in military training. The transformation was profound. Gone were the sequins and the glitz. Gone was the stage where the world adored him. In their place were uniform drills, long marches, and the rigorous discipline of an army private. Recruits barely recognized the boy who had once tamed the charts with Heartbreak Hotel. "Left, right, left," a drill sergeant barked. Elvis moved in perfect synchrony, but inside, he wrestled with a mix of pride and longing. Pride at serving his country, longing for the music and fans he missed so desperately. Each letter home became a lifeline, a reminder that the world outside still loved him. October 1958 brought a new horizon: Germany, Europe, a foreign land with cobblestone streets, cafes, and a life unlike anything Elvis had known. As the plane descended, Elvis peered out the window at the unfamiliar landscape. "This is it," he murmured. "This is my new stage." Just quieter. He was stationed in Bad Nauheim, a charming spa town that had once attracted German royalty. The Hotel Grunewald would become his home away from home for the next several months. A place where fans occasionally peered over balconies. Locals whispered in wonder, and the man behind the legend slowly began to emerge. Imagine him walking through the lobby of the Grunewald, suitcase in hand, trying to remain unseen but failing utterly. A group of teenagers peered through windows. "Is that really?" one whispered. And it was. The king of rock and roll. But here, he wasn't a star. He was a soldier, a young man in a strange country, trying to find moments of normalcy amidst the fame. Daily life became a mix of army duties and quiet exploration. Elvis discovered the rhythm of German life, the morning cafes with strong coffee, the laughter echoing down narrow streets, the melodies of local musicians in the squares. And in these small, unassuming moments, he found a kind of peace he hadn't felt amidst the chaos of American superstardom. At night, the hotel room became a sanctuary. He'd sit at the small desk by the window, writing letters, strumming a guitar, humming tunes. "I miss you," he wrote to a friend. "But I think I'm learning something here, about life, about myself." Sometimes he would just stare out at the gardens, imagining the stages he had left behind and the applause that would eventually greet him again. The people around him were fascinated and cautious. Army colleagues struggled to reconcile the boy they trained with the legend they had read about in magazines. "He's just him," one soldier remarked. "No bigger than anyone else, but somehow impossible to ignore." And that was Elvis, simultaneously ordinary and extraordinary. During these months, life at the Hotel Grunewald was a blend of curiosity, secrecy, and adaptation. Guests occasionally glimpsed him in the halls, greeted politely, but with awe. Local children would peek through windows, hoping for a smile, a wave, anything. And sometimes Elvis would oblige, a small nod, a gentle laugh, tiny moments that humanized the icon. Behind closed doors, Elvis faced emotional turbulence. The absence from home weighed on him heavily. Thoughts of his mother, Gladys, who had passed years before, resurfaced. He missed family, the warmth of Memphis, the familiar embrace of a life paused but not forgotten. Music was his refuge. Even in uniform in a foreign country, his guitar remained his confidant, his connection to the world he loved and would soon return to. And then there were the whispers of something else, something young and delicate, Priscilla Beaulieu. Though she was only 14, the daughter of an Air Force officer stationed nearby, she would eventually become a defining part of Elvis's life. During this German chapter, their paths were beginning to converge, the first threads of a connection that would ripple through history. Life in Bad Nauheim was not just about adaptation, it was about introspection. Elvis walked along the spa gardens, listening to the wind in the trees, reflecting on fame, youth, and responsibility. His diary entries, later revealed, speak of a young man learning to reconcile the adoration of millions with the quiet desire to simply exist without expectation. On weekends, the town's locals would catch glimpses of him in cafes, quietly sipping coffee, enjoying pastries, observing life. He played music in small gatherings, not for fame, but for the sheer love of it. One evening, a group of soldiers asked him to sing. He hesitated, then strummed the first chords. "Love Me Tender" floated softly across the room, unamplified, intimate, tender. No screaming fans, no cameras, just music and soul. This period of 1958-1959 was formative. It wasn't just military service. It was a time when Elvis learned patience, humility, and self-reflection. The star persona was stripped away, leaving the man beneath, curious, compassionate, and quietly brilliant. Every letter, every quiet walk, every night alone in the hotel shaped him, preparing him for the life that awaited back in America. February 2nd, 1959, marked the end of his stay at Hotel Grunewald. The departure was quiet, unassuming, but symbolic. Elvis walked through the lobby one last time, suitcase in hand, memories in his heart. Fans who had glimpsed him waved silently. Soldiers and staff watched with admiration. And Elvis? He carried with him a new sense of maturity, perspective, and readiness for the next stage of life. As the plane lifted off, he looked down at Bad Nauheim, at the gardens, the cobblestones, the quiet town that had offered him refuge and growth. "I'll never forget this place," he whispered. "It changed me, made me stronger." And indeed it did. The months at Hotel Grunewald, the streets of Bad Nauheim, and the experiences of military life shaped Elvis Presley not just as a star, but as a man capable of balancing fame with humanity, music with reflection, and love with responsibility. This chapter, often overshadowed by records, movies, and scandals, reveals the depth of Elvis Presley's character, his resilience, and the human moments that even the most ardent fans rarely glimpse. It is a story of growth, transformation, and quiet triumph. A story that reminds us that even legends have chapters unseen, untold, and unforgettable. Even after decades, the world never fully understood the man behind the legend during his time in Germany. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, had been thrust from the dazzling lights of American stardom into the disciplined world of military service, landing in a small spa town called Bad Nauheim. This chapter of his life, from October 1958 to February 2nd, 1959, is often overlooked. But it is here, in these quiet streets, hotel corridors, and intimate moments that Elvis grew, reflected, and became more than just a superstar. Imagine the plane touching down in Germany. The air was crisp and unfamiliar. He looked out of the small window of the military transport and murmured to a fellow soldier, "This isn't Hollywood. This is something else entirely." Around him, the European landscape stretched in a mix of forests, cobblestone streets, and sleepy villages, a stark contrast to the chaos he had left behind. Life at Hotel Grunewald, Hotel Grunewald. A stately building with manicured gardens and tall windows became his temporary home. The locals were cautious, curious, and full of awe. Imagine him walking down the grand lobby corridor, army-issued boots clicking softly against the polished floors. Staff paused in their duties, eyes widening, whispering to each other. "It's him." The American singer? Elvis, always modest despite the legend that preceded him, offered a small smile. "Good morning," he said in his soft, melodic voice, blending politeness with warmth. A maid paused mid-step, momentarily forgetting her chores. That small interaction captured the essence of Elvis in Germany, ordinary and extraordinary all at once. Daily routines were a mix of army obligations and private exploration. Mornings began early with drills, physical training, and military exercises. "Move left, right, left!" barked the drill sergeant. Elvis followed the commands, disciplined and precise. But inside, he carried memories of stage lights, screaming fans, and the guitars he'd leave behind in America. Evenings were his refuge. Sitting near the large window of his hotel room, guitar in hand, he played softly. Some nights he hummed "Love Me Tender," imagining the quiet streets of Memphis, imagining fans' smiles, imagining life before the uniform. The music was a lifeline, a reminder that though he was far from home, his heart remained tied to the world he had temporarily left behind. Letters and reflection letters were his secret connection to the world. He wrote long, detailed letters to friends, confidants, and even his former manager, Colonel Parker. One letter, written in early November 1958, read, "Germany is beautiful, quiet, almost too quiet. I miss the noise, the energy, the chaos. But in this silence, I find myself thinking more clearly. I am learning patience, humility, and a strange kind of joy. Life is teaching me things I never expected." These letters reveal a side of Elvis that few had ever seen. The introspective, thoughtful young man beneath the superstar persona. He was learning to balance fame with anonymity, music with discipline, and longing with gratitude. Interactions with locals were both fascinated and wary. Children would peek through windows, hoping for a wave, a smile, or a glimpse of the voice they had only heard on records. Soldiers and staff sometimes gathered near the hotel's gardens, sharing anecdotes and jokes with Elvis. One crisp morning, he walked through the spa gardens, passing elderly locals who were curious but respectful. "You must be very famous," said a local baker, handing him a freshly baked bread roll. Elvis nodded graciously. "Thank you. It's kind of surreal, isn't it?" The baker laughed softly, shaking his head. "Indeed. Fame so far from home. The private side of Elvis away from the public eye, Elvis's personality emerged in full. He laughed easily, shared small jokes, and even practiced German phrases with soldiers. But he also carried the weight of homesickness, missing family, especially his father and mother, and the friends he had left behind. In quiet reflection, he often wandered the hotel gardens alone, strumming his guitar, speaking to himself in hushed tones. "I wonder, will they still remember me the same way when I return? Will the applause feel different after this? After all this?" These moments were intimate, private, and rarely glimpsed by outsiders. They revealed Elvis as a human being, full of hope, doubt, and reflection, not just the king of rock and roll. Musical moments music remained central to his life. At night, after military drills, he would gather with fellow soldiers or hotel staff, performing acoustic versions of his hits. "Hound Dog," "Don't Be Cruel," and "Love Me Tender" resonated softly in the halls of Hotel Grunewald, enchanting those lucky enough to hear. No screaming fans, no flashing cameras, just music, emotion, and connection. One evening, a young German boy peeked through the window as Elvis played. He smiled and motioned for him to come closer. "Would you like to try?" Elvis asked, handing him the guitar. The boy hesitated, then strummed the first chord. Laughter filled the room. These small human moments showed Elvis as both teacher and friend, a man who shared joy despite his fame. Emotional struggles and reflection life in Germany wasn't always easy. The absence from home, the strict routines, and the cultural differences weighed heavily on him. He struggled with loneliness, often writing letters late at night, recalling memories of Memphis, and expressing longing for the simplicity of his earlier life. He reflected on his fame and its burdens. "Sometimes I wish people could see me. Just me. Not the legend, not the king, not the spectacle. Just Elvis." These reflections reveal the emotional depth of his Germany years, an icon learning humility, patience, and resilience. Human connections. Evenings often included quiet conversations with soldiers, hotel staff, and locals. Elvis listened intently, laughed genuinely, and shared stories of his life before the uniform. He was approachable yet guarded, blending his humanity with the mystique of fame. In one memorable moment, a soldier asked, "What do you miss most about America?" Elvis paused, fingers gently resting on his guitar strings. "The music, the people, the warmth of home, but also the freedom to be myself." The Priscilla. Chapter hints. Though Priscilla Beaulieu was still a young teenager living nearby, the seeds of that connection were planted during this time. Elvis's time in Germany exposed him to a world beyond fame, and though their eventual meeting was still months away, the environment of Bad Nauheim was instrumental in setting the stage for that fateful encounter. Cultural exploration. Elvis explored the town cautiously, learning German customs, tasting local foods, and observing life in a post-war European city. From walking past the spa fountains to visiting small cafes, he embraced the culture quietly, always mindful of his military responsibilities and the eyes watching him. "Everything is different here," he wrote in another letter. "The people, the streets, the food. It's beautiful, strange, and enlightening. I am learning more than I expected." Challenges and triumphs. The months were not without difficulty. He navigated homesickness, the rigidity of army life, and the occasional gossip about his presence in Germany. Yet he persevered, balancing duty with personal growth, embracing solitude with music and finding joy in unexpected places. Farewell to Hotel Grunewald, February 2nd, 1959, marked the end of this chapter. Elvis packed his bags quietly, reflecting on the months of growth, friendship, music, and personal discovery. He walked through the lobby one last time, nodding to staff who had grown fond of him, acknowledging the small but meaningful community that had formed around him. As the plane lifted off, he gazed down at Bad Nauheim, the gardens of the hotel, and the cobblestone streets. "I will carry this with me," he whispered. "This place, these months, they changed me forever."